subject you announced you're going to talk about. So it has the same principles in it, but I'm going to direct it a little bit differently. I'm going to direct it to the subject of the challenges of parents and youth. When I was growing up in Marion, I thought I had almost the ideal childhood. I did not think so then, but as I look back at it, I think it was almost ideal. Somebody's in the background. I don't know if that's bothering you or not. So, Louise.
That might be me, but I don't have any way to mute. I'm on a landline.
*6. If she pushes *6, I think that'll mute her.
Okay, so Louise and Doug and Jim and I have gotten together and had discussions a little bit, and so if I say something that's contrary to what you remember or think, I want you to correct me. And I'm not going to take the whole time. I'm going to mention some things, and then you can have a rebuttal if you want, or some input. The reason I feel that my upbringing was almost ideal is, and I'll start with this. When I went with my parents and other members of the family, any or none, to somebody else's place to visit, we would knock on the door, we would be invited in, and sometimes we would be shown a place to sit. So we went and sat down, and as a child, I sat there on the chair I was told to sit on, and the adults would have a conversation. If that family had some kids, at some point, I would usually be invited to go outside and play with them. Otherwise, I sat on that chair, I listened, I did not interrupt the conversation, I did not talk to my parents while conversation was going on. I sat there. And that was the norm for that time. We didn't look at other kids' toys and run after them, and whether it was inside or outside, we did not touch anything unless we were invited to. Something else that is, I think, should be a concern, I'm not singling out anybody or pointing any fingers. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge to raise kids nowadays because of societal norms and where we've evolved to. I never heard of any such a thing as counting to 10 when we were told something to do or not to do, counting to 10 or having a timeout. There wasn't such a thing. When our parents told us something, we did it. Sometimes we were a little slow and reluctant when Mom told us, but we didn't waste any time when Pa told us to do something because we knew we had to do it. When we ate our meals, there was almost no complaining. We were taught to eat what we took, and if it was something like dessert, we didn't take more than our share, and so that was very different than it is now. Times were different, and people didn't have the affluence that they do now, but there was no food wasted, and you did not leave the table with food on your plate. So I wrote down some things that have changed that I think are challenges and to children. Some of them can be mitigated a little bit and some of them can't. But I wrote 27 things down that I think are a concern, and I'm going to go over those. First off, when Moses had the children of Israel in the promised land ready to go into, they were in the wilderness, ready to go into the promised land. Because they were not ready, they were not obedient, they wouldn't keep the commandments, the Lord didn't let them go in. So he didn't give them a commandment that they couldn't or wouldn't live. They had to go through a 40-year conditioning process in order to get themselves ready to go into the promised land. So that the Lord doesn't, in my opinion, the Lord doesn't give the people commandments that they're not ready to live. There might be an exception or two. He doesn't change the law of morality. That's fixed. You don't move that around with society. So I'm going to address dress and grooming. When President Harold B. Lee was president of the church, and he wasn't president for very long, he was taken before he'd been president too long. He came to BYU and gave a talk on a Sunday evening. And at that time, there was a trend in society to grow your hair long or grow whiskers and beards. And you could not get a temple recommend unless you're clean shaven and have your hair groomed. You couldn't go in the temple with long hair. So President Lee was addressing the student body and the world, and he said, "Look to me. I am the person at this time in life that the Lord has chosen to be representative of him on the earth. So you can look to me, and you can have long hair and whiskers as soon as I have it. I'm the example that the Lord has put before you at this time as far as grooming and dress." Now, things have changed a lot. President Heber J. Grant, when he was president of the church, and Utah was in the period of prohibition, meaning that liquor, alcohol were prohibited, there was an attempt to repeal that prohibition and allow them to be consumed again and allow them to be legal. And Utah was the deciding state whether we were going to repeal prohibition. And President Grant pled with the people to not repeal it, to let prohibition remain in place. But the people did not follow President Grant's counsel, and they voted to repeal so they could have alcohol again. And someone who I heard give a talk that I knew personally from BYU, but became, I think he was secretary of the first presidency. He had access to the presidents of the churches, not personal diaries, I guess, but they're things that went on. So he had access to what President Grant said about that. When the people rejected President Grant, it about broke his heart. And he said, "I will never again appeal to the people of this state on a political matter." It was terribly, terribly hard on him that they had rejected his counsel. So the church changes policy from time to time on what is allowed. So, as you all know, there have been a lot of changes in dress standards, clothing. Because I was going to the doctor some the last few years because of an appendectomy, appendicitis, and 2 hip surgeries and a hernia. I would go to the doctor and he'd want me to look at my midsection. and I had one-piece garment on, and I couldn't very well do that. So I decided I better get a two-piece garment just to wear to the doctors. So I went into the church distribution place in Pocatello, and the lady says, you can't try on garments anymore. We don't let you try them on. I'll look at you and I'll tell you what size garment fits you. So she did. She gave me a top and a bottom, and I brought them home. And when the next time I had to go to the doctor, I put them on, and I was appalled at the bottom part of the garments. I could tell Colleen that they come down to mid-thigh, and they're really tight. And I said, these remind me of boxing shorts, not temple garments. So I say that to it is my feeling, just my feeling, not saying it's true, that the policy of the church changes with the people's willingness to and the people's attitudes. So I'm gonna go down my 27-point list here. I'm gonna start with movies. Movies have changed a lot. Hollywood produces movies that the people will attend. A lot of the movies that people go to now, and the most popular movies, are those that have the most noise, the most violence in them, and even children's cartoons. If you will listen and pay attention, the characters in the cartoons that are supposedly appropriate for kids, people don't talk in a normal voice. They yell. Most of their conversation is yelling, and kids have picked up on that, and we don't talk in a normal voice anymore. It's just yelling, and I think that is sad. Okay, music nowadays is not like it used to be. It's you know what rock and roll is, and before Elvis Presley and the Beatles, which happened around 1956, people sang a song if they were singing, and the lyrics were something that you could hear and make sense to and were relevant. Now, music has changed so much. It is just, and even Western music, it is a whang tang, shoot some noise through your nostrils. It's just, and that compared to popular music is just, I think it's not conducive to the spirit of the Holy Ghost. Okay, cell phones. We're not going to get away from cell phones. They're a part of society, and they've even been approved by the church for all the missionaries. Every missionary now in the church where there's cell service has a cell phone. But we get so obsessed with what's on Facebook that when people get anywhere, they've got to check their cell phone. They've got to see who's saying what. They've got to figure out see what's on Facebook. It's so annoying that their attention is on that, and you can't even have a conversation with them a lot of the time. So I think we need to be wise in how we use technology and cell phones. Something that I've noticed is, even the missionaries, when Sister Andress and I were on our mission, we would take them to zone conferences, and we'd be in the car for 2 or 3 hours one way, and after the meeting 2 or 3 hours another way. The missionaries, and this is young people in general, they don't even care or not even cognizant of what's going on around them. They don't look out the window and look at the scenery or what people are doing, what crops are growing. Even in the most beautiful scenic spots, they're just concerned with what's on their cell phone or talking to each other about inconsequential things. One thing that I noticed about Colleen when I met her and we went together is she was very observant of what was going on around her. She was interested and knew what things were going on around her. Young people now don't even know what direction's from them. They don't know if east from west or whatever. The next thing I wrote down is making out. LeGrand Richards, when he was a member of the Quorum of the 12, came to Marion. Well, but didn't come really to Marion. He came to Camas and talked in our state conference. And he said, marrying a girl that has been kissed by somebody else is just like eating a sandwich with the butter all licked off. Now, think how things have changed. Truman Madsen, I heard him talking to Fireside, and he never kissed his wife until he kissed her across the altar in the temple. She was Heber J. Grant's daughter. Another thing that I think is very serious about our society now is young people are not taught to work. They don't like to work. They won't work. They don't have to work. I lied to my father twice in my life. One time he said, "Don't you like to work?" And I knew what the appropriate answer was, and I said, "Well, I did." And I did, but I really didn't then. But I've learned to enjoy work. I'm the happiest when I'm working. It gives me satisfaction of working. And the other thing relative to that is, Paul said, "Do you live to eat or eat to live?" And of course, I knew which answer he wanted, and so I gave him the appropriate answer. Another challenge we have today is people, especially kids, drink a lot of pop and eat a lot of candy and sweets. When I was growing up, that was very limited, and I think that we were healthier because of it. Of course, nowadays we have modern medicine. I realize that people live a lot longer than they did because of medicine. But nowadays, if you get something wrong with you, why, there's a pill, a medicine that the doctors give you for it. When I was in Michigan, I heard of so many new ailments that I told some people that I trusted. I said, I think that the medical profession now hires people to name these new ailments that we've all got. There's so many new ones that we've never heard of before. They've hired people just to come up with a name of all the different things they've diagnosed in us. One thing that I think is a difficult challenge for us is, with the emphasis on not abusing kids, I think we've gone off the deep end to a certain extent. Now kids have the attitude, it's all about me. It's all about me. When I want something, I don't care who my parents are talking to. All I do is just interrupt, and it's all about me, what I want. That did not used to be the norm. For entertainment, when I was growing up, and this probably will never change, I think it's a shame, but dancing was very popular. We didn't have TV. TV came out, well, it wasn't even invented when I was in the 8th grade. While I was in high school, TV came out. But we danced for entertainment. All ages of people danced, and it was a pastime, and it's something enjoyable, and it was an art. When Elvis Presley and the Beatles got popular, then dancing changed, the way people dance. I'll give you a little stark example of that. When I came home from my mission, I became aware that the student body president in Cedar City at college in southern Utah, he was talking to the student body and describing the new form of dancing, where you didn't touch your partner, you just flung your body and arms around in different gyrations. And he said this new dancing, he said now it's where you get up and all parts of your body move except your bowels. Okay. Something else that's a challenge that I think we're losing is reading. Kids don't read much anymore, and they don't write much anymore. They don't know how to write, and they don't know how to read, and that's a shame. Kids nowadays have a lot of toys. They have so many that they don't even appreciate them. If they had one or two like we did growing up, they would appreciate them and take care of them. Now they have so many, they just go through them and don't take care of them. And I think that is a habit we've gotten into that is not good. Okay. Nowadays, it seems like we have to spend a lot of money to have a good time. You didn't used to have to do that. You could self-entertain yourself. When your friends came to see you or you went to see them, you could be entertained with no money and on very little. It just took very little to be entertained. When I was young, no kids ever jumped on beds or furniture. I never saw it ever until way later in life. Something that I think is in poor taste is people chew gum in church, even when they talk in church. Now, I heard one person say they had to do it because their mouth was dry. You be the judge of that, but chewing gum in public, especially church, I think is in poor taste. I told Alan Baft that I wish that the general authorities about 3 months before general conference, every one of them would let their whiskers and hair grow, and when they got up to give a talk, they would chew gum. I think that would be a stark wake-up call for us. Early on in my memory, well, no, it was before my memory. There was a doctor in Soda Springs by the name of Dr. Cackley. A book has been written about him. And he was so conscientious about serving the people that he would get a message that somebody, he was in Soda Springs, somebody out in Wayan, which is clear over before you go over the hill to get into Wyoming, was sick, and he would hook up his buggy or get on his horse and head out, no matter the hour of the day. He would go at night, go there to take care of them. And if he went someplace and the Bear River the bridge couldn't be crossed because of the roughness and height of the water, he would swim across the Bear River to get to somebody that needed his help. Now I'm going down my list here just the way I wrote them. Then maybe the sequence is not very good, but now you can't have a dance in our barn and charge enough to pay the musicians because of liability. You just can't do anything because all people think about is sue, sue, sue. If this happens to me, I can sue my neighbor. You can sue this. Within the last week, I learned that from my cousin Millard Andrus that his sister-in-law, who lived in the Wasatch Front, and her family had a cabin west of Downey. She was in the Stake Relief Society presence, and so they had a retreat at their cabin. And the cabin was constructed so that in the front of it was shaped in an A with a deck, and the deck had been nailed to a big post out in the point of the A. So all the Relief Society board members went out there to have their picture taken. Now, this happened 2 or 3 years ago. And while they were having their picture taken, the weight of all of them on the deck caused the nails to pull out of the post that it was attached to, and the deck went down and all of them went down. And several broken legs and broken arms resulted. They were there quite a while, all heaped up in a pile before the ambulance got there. So now, several of those, there were a lot of, no one lost their life. There were a lot of broken arms and broken legs. So several of those people now are suing Millard's sister-in-law's family for damages. We've just gone sue happy. It's too bad. Okay, divorce. There are times when a divorce is appropriate, but in society, thankfully, it's not as much so in the church. But the rate of divorce has increased drastically in the church. Civil marriages now, a lot of people get married just to try out marriage and say, well, if it doesn't work out, we can get divorced. That's a shame, especially when children are involved. Children sometimes never recover. Now, as I said, there's times that divorce are the best solution and justified. I'm not pointing to anybody or anything else. The scriptures say that in the last days, people will lose their natural affection. Well, I think that's happened. Many, many people that you know and I know love their pets more than they do children, even their own children. I think that's gotten out of hand, way out of hand, that people dote so much on a pet. Now, you people who have pets in your house, you have them all you want. But I think that we've gone overboard regarding pets in our house. One thing that really bothers me is children, when they're in church, are not taught what the purpose of church is, or that they're in church. They just carry on and make noise, and their parents do not realize the disturbance that they're causing those around them. They don't teach them to be reverent and quiet. Just don't teach them that. In fact, a lot of them don't teach them hardly anything. Okay. Something else that's on my list is what is taught in school. That is a challenge that is for parents that we have to overcome and do it in our homes. Pretty much in school, we're not taught about the great history of our country and what people had to sacrifice for that freedom and history that we have. They don't even teach about it. They're forbidden to teach about it. And that's a shame that we don't appreciate the history that we have. It seems to me that a lot of people now dress for attention, exotic looks, exotic hairdos. It's to command attention, exotic colors. I don't think that is very. I think it's demeaning to the concept that we are children of God and our bodies a tabernacle of God. When I was growing up, we had 3 meals a day, and we didn't peace and snack and eat candy and treats all the time. I never heard of a treat except a Halloween treat when you went Halloweening. And if we would get really hungry before dinner, which was now lunch, my mother would say, well, okay, you can have 1 soda cracker or 1 graham cracker to tide you over. Now, kids have so many treats during the day and piece on stuff that when mealtime comes, they're not hungry, and their parents are really challenged to get them eat their meal. It's just, we're all wacko. I'll just add this, not advice or anything, but my father made the statement when he saw people barbecuing out in their backyard or wherever they're barbecuing. He says, boy, the people have sure changed nowadays. He said, when I was growing up, people had outhouses. They went to the bathroom outside and they cooked in the house. Now it's all changed. They go to the bathroom in the house and they cook outside. Just a little side note. We never took more food than we ate. If we took food, then we ate it. We didn't take it and leave it on our plate. Well, that's part of my thoughts. I'd like Doug or Jim or Louise to tell you where I've erred and what I've said, and then you. I don't care to say any more. Let's have a discussion if you want to. So, Doug or Jim or Louise, you want to add or subtract or correct?
I'll speak up. The things that you said, I agree with, and I think that you've told us the way it was, and I think you've given us some good wisdom, and I don't have anything else to say except that I do think it'd be good if we all, young and old alike, would be respectful and thoughtful of people and not just have it up be all about ourselves. And Kim, thank you for your comments. I think they've been real good, and I'm done now. Okay, hold on. Can I interrupt for half a second? Yes. Our phone call got lost, and Ken was just talking about 3 meals a day. So what all did we miss at the very end of your recap, please?
Is there a question?
Ken, did you hear her question to you?
No, Kevin will tell me what the question was.
Ben and Carla heard up to 3 meals a day, and they wondered if you'd rehash it real quick.
Oh, okay. Nowadays, there are kids that have treats and snacks all during the day, and so when mealtime comes, they're not hungry and they won't eat their food, and the parents are frustrated that they won't clean up their plate and eat their food. So I was just saying that we had 3 meals a day, and if we got too hungry to wait till dinner time, which was now lunch, my mom would say, well, you could have a graham cracker or a soda cracker, but we waited and and then until mealtime to eat. And then we were hungry and we ate what was served us. Didn't complain about it or shun it. We ate it.
Was there anything else that I missed?
Was it?
Probably not. Okay. I just tried to see if I'm a good mother or not.
Yeah, you are.
This is Doug. I'll comment. Ken, I really enjoyed all of those items you went through. I agree with almost 100% of them. One, I probably wasn't as well behaved as you were taught to be and as you were when you went to Neighbors. I can't remember an exception, but I probably wasn't quite as good as you. Especially the last few months, I have thought how blessed I was at living with the parents that I had, with the situation, with the location, and listening to the news the last few months. I'm very concerned about what's ahead of us, and so I am more feel blessed with the time of life that I've had and the teachings and blessings that I've had. I guess that's my comment. This is Jim. I have one comment. When I was growing up, the ate what was on our plate. Taking more than we could eat, why, put it in the refrigerator and sit the next meal. And I remember I have to eat a big bowl of soggy stuff or other before you got it. It was not very pleasant, so you learned to not take more than what you would eat, and you worked off to clean up your food. And you didn't clean it up while you get to eat it at the next meal. And if you took more than you could eat, you said your eyes were bigger than your stomach. Yeah.
There is one exception to eating what you're served. Tom Harper lived kitty-cornered from John and Margie's house, and when we were in the Jackson house, we were directly across the road, Topaz Road from them. Tom Harper had a few cows and was living with his third wife, Josie. Said he loved all three of his wives, but he had quite a few chickens, and he would harvest chickens, clean them and harvest them for somebody else, but also he harvested a lot of his own chickens. And he had a chicken plucker, but then they had to clean them and whatnot. And so Sister Harper, Josie, would ask Mom to come over and help some, and probably Margie too. I guess, but Mom went over a time or two, and she'd come back with some chicken legs and was going to fix some chicken feet for kind of a gravy. It was in a kind of a gravy mixture. And so she fixed it and served it to us for supper. And I remember Pa and me and Mom, and I don't know if Doug and Jim were there. I don't think Louise was there. But okay. And so the Mom set it on the table for us, and these chicken claws are sticking up out of this thickening, and I don't think anybody ate any of it except Mom. She pulled one out and chewed on it a while, and nobody said anything. That's nothing. But Mom never did serve that ever again. Only that one time.
When I was on my mission, I saw a lady, a Chinese lady, order chicken feet soup, and she put those chicken feet in her mouth and swish them around and then spit the bones out. And I remembered about Mom and Sister Harper, but boy, it sure did not look appetizing to me.
It didn't to me either. We were hungry and lots of hot coffee.
Yep.
That's one of the blessings of not being able to taste. I'm still gonna let you be in charge, Doug.
Have you got the speaker and the topic for next week picked out?